29. We are in a different location today, as you can see. I might plug my phone in as well to do this, just make sure we don't die during the live stream. There we go. So we are going to be discussing this evening the best cars of British Leyland. Yes, you might think that's some kind of complete paradox, but we did make some good cars, and I have driven some of them today, including the Austin 1800, which you might have seen on the community page. David Perkins says, good evening, sir. Good to see you. Good to see you too, sir. Let me just get this pop-out chat ready, and we will wait for some more people to come online. It's been a crazy couple of days. I've filmed 9 videos. I've got 7 reviews to edit, which is going to be interesting. And I'm doing another review tomorrow and probably some shambolic shuffles. So it's going to be entertaining over the next couple of days, with a much better camera placement actually as well. We normally do. It actually looks a lot more natural this time. Mr. Waters from Scottish Car Enthusiast and Trains TV says good evening. Good evening to you, sir. The drink of choice is some dark fruit cider, which I shall be enjoying. But I might just top it up with this bottle of cherry Pepsi Max as well, because we don't want to have too much of this on the live stream, because it keeps keeps making me go strange and say things I don't normally say. Psycho63 says I can't keep up the output. The thing is, I have to keep going, because if I don't do this, I see the figures just drop straight off. That's just the way that YouTube works. If you don't keep uploading and you do it very regularly, then your channel can just totally die. And my channel's not massive anyway. It's it's quite a small channel. I have been working quite hard over the last sort of 4 years to keep maintaining things, and some channels grow faster than others. It's just the way that it is. But I just have to keep going, and we just grow steadily. That's just the way that it is. You can skip videos if you want. I mean, a lot of people skip the very vague vlogs. You know, those have terrible viewing figures, but I do them because there's a very sort of small, loyal audience who really like them. And if you are kind of on the second tier up and above, you can see those pretty much the day they're done. I'm just actually rendering right now today's very vague vlog. It's just rendering in the background of the laptop. So yes, I mean, sometimes it's a right pain having to find stuff to film. It can be very difficult in the winter, for example, to find things to film. But sometimes, like the last couple of days, I've made 10 videos in the last 2 days, and I filmed 9 cars. So yes, I hope you enjoy them, and I've got more to come. Got more to do next week. I'm just trying to build up a library of content just in case we have a problem in the winter like we did last time, where we just didn't have enough cars to film, and it got a bit difficult really. Paul JN says, good evening, sir. Good evening to you, sir. No 5-star hotels. We don't do 5-star hotels on this channel. We'd rather spend our money on something else. Psycho63 says, as long as you enjoy it. Well, today was most enjoyable. I was driving a selection of very, very old cars. The newest car I drove today was from 1978. The oldest one was 1964. So yes, we've been producing output. Yesterday, the oldest car was actually 78 as well, but the newest one was from 2014. So yes, a varied selection. I hope you all enjoy those. So yes, the best cars of British Leyland. That's quite a big area to cover, because we're starting in 1968 and we're going right the way through to the formation of kind of about 14 years. Austin Rover was, though, a continuation of British Leyland. That company didn't really change to what it was until about 1988, when it was bought by British Aerospace and renamed the Rover Group. So, you know, there are some cars in there that were designed under British Leyland, like the Maestro Montego, but they never were sold under that name having anything to do with it. By that time, it was Austin Rover. So, yes, all sorts of things to sort of consider. I've driven many British Leyland cars now, such as the Maxi, the Allegro, the Triumph Acclaim that was launched under British Leyland right at the end in 1981. I'm just trying to think if I've done too many others. Yeah, Triumph Dolomite, that was British Leyland as well. Those had the little sort of plug hole of despair on them. Yeah, so those are the ones I've done for the channel, and then today even more, even more stuff from that era. Right, do we have any more comments? No, don't seem to have too many more at the moment. So this live stream's actually working, because last week I don't know why it didn't work. It just didn't work at all. It was most annoying, but there we go. Right, do we have anything else that anyone wants to say, or do I just keep babbling on like I sort of always do? Oh, Simone from Hooked on Classics is here. Good evening, Simone. How are you? I'm not young anymore, I'm afraid. I'm going to be 40 in a couple of months, so I'm not young anymore, I'm afraid. Mr. Waters from Scottish Car Enthusiast and Trains TV has made a very, very good point. It's actually a car that he's filmed on his own channel. I would have said the Mini Metro would be a contender for the best car of British Leyland. Well, the Metro was very, very successful. It was a very successful car for them, and I think by kind of the late 80s, the sort of development costs of that car had been sort of amortised, really. So the later Metros, particularly after sort of 1988, I think they probably were quite profitable for the company. Now, by that stage, they were trying to make a replacement. The R6 Metro that came in 1990, the Rover Metro, was not as progressive a facelift as they would have really wanted to do. They did make something that was going to be a lot more exciting than that. I'm not that the Euro Metro is not exciting. That's a pretty decent car. My godfather used to have a GTA 5-door in British Racing Green when I was growing up. Yeah. But yeah, that was actually quite well received in 1990, but they were planning something a bit more comprehensive, I think. But they're quite a long design life. I mean, people really liked them at the time. Some people hated them as well, of course, and they said they were terrible and rusty and rubbish and all this kind of stuff. But I've driven loads of Metros. I've got another one, I think, coming up soon, and I really like them. I think they're brilliant. If you can find one that's rust-free and is all sorted and the hydrogas is working properly, then yeah, there we go. Simone says, I missed a Parksley by 20 minutes. I'm sorry to hear that, my friend. Yeah, I'm probably younger than quite a few people on the channel. If I look at the analytics, it does tell me what age people are, and I'm still a little bit younger than most people, though I've got quite a few people actually as well who watch the channel who are younger than I am. So yeah, that's good. And yes, in response to your second question, Simone, I did see that that video, and to be honest, I've been in touch with Errol and Alex since the day that accident happened. I actually have a video of my own coming up on it, which was recorded the day after that happened. I don't go into too much detail about it because we didn't know too much at the time about what had happened. That'll be coming up probably in a couple of weeks. But it's just something I wanted to record my own thoughts about it, and it's a very kind of unplanned video because we didn't really know what had happened, because he wasn't actually conscious for quite a while, and so we couldn't ask him, if that makes sense. Alex went to visit him. I was going to go with her originally, but I couldn't make it because I had some filming to do on the particular day that she went. And I just couldn't rearrange it at that sort of notice. I just had to honour the person who I said I was going to go. Otherwise, I definitely would have gone. I just couldn't rearrange things at that sort of notice to go and see him. But I have been in touch with him, and I am planning to go and see him and possibly have a go in his new car. So yeah, he actually bought a new car before the Metro got written off. So yeah, so we have some thoughts about that and some other things. I don't give any specific details about him or about the car in the video because I didn't know what was going to happen at the time. But it's just there, it's a little archive thing, really. Alex's video is probably better because it was sort of recorded a bit more polished and a bit later on. Yeah, so Mr. Washington Scottish Car Enthusiast Race TV says, yeah, he saw the video. He's glad that Errol's on the mend. Errol is, yeah, I think he's basically fine. Psycho63 says the match looks really bad. Oh my gosh, you have no idea. Like, we were trying to work out what had happened just with some pictures that somebody had taken, and before Errol had the chance to actually say anything to us, and it's a miracle, really. That's a miracle he survived it. He didn't do anything wrong whatsoever. Absolutely nothing wrong. It wasn't his fault at all. He couldn't have done anything more, really. That was entirely the other driver's fault. It was not his fault at all. Nothing to do with it. We didn't know that at the time because he was unconscious and things. But yeah, crazy. Just looks like a freak accident, really. Hello to Mr. Harwood from Rover Joe. Good evening, sir. How are you? Right, Simone is saying hello to Mr. Harwood. That's very nice. Right, so yes, the Metro. Yeah, I've driven 3 Metros so far. One was an 83 Vanden Plas, an early Vanden Plas. That was rather nice. I really would like to get hold of a Mark II Vanden Plas, which has 5 doors, and possibly one with a beige leather interior. That'd be nice. The manual ones are a little bit more powerful than the automatic ones, but you can get electric windows and all kinds of exciting stuff with those. So yeah, Metro Vanden Plas would be very nice. My grandfather used to own an automatic Metro, but I would like just a manual one. I think that would be sort of more me. Jonathan Pork Sausage says, good evening. Sorry, I'm latte. I don't think you're a latte, sir, but that would be rather difficult. But don't worry if you're late, that's not a problem. Yeah, so Rover Vanden Plas, that was good. That had been actually, that had been tuned to almost the level of power from an MG Turbo Metro. Yeah. So it had about like 85 horsepower. Standard, that Vanden Plas would have been, I think it's either like 63 or 72, but it had been sort of tuned a bit, and it was a really fast car. That it was really quick. The other 2 Metros I've done were a 1989 Metro Mosaic, which was like a special edition, right, so towards the end, and that had been modified a little bit. And then a Metro City. It was one with both were without the Austin badges because in '87 they'd removed the Austin badges. So both Mark IIs, quite late ones. The Metro City was very basic, absolute base spec, no glove box, just like nothing really, no headrests or head restraint, I should say. Got to get in trouble for this to say the wrong thing there. But really charming, like just absolute utter riot. The brakes are really good for that sort of car. Gearbox can be a bit of a problem on the Metros and the clutch. They're quite heavy. Clutches and minis are the same actually. So you either like that or you don't. I just happen to like it. I wouldn't want to drive like a really long way in one of these A-Series Metros, but I think they're wonderful. Psycho63 says, I don't think I'd like to be in a smash in a Seicento, a very poor crash safety rating. I've actually driven a Seicento, sir. I drove a Seicento back in February, actually in London, in the ultra emission zone, because the owner had bought it specifically because it was compliant. It was a 51 registration. It was an SX. It was quite good fun, but yeah, as you say, you don't want to have an accident in that. Not a lot of room in there. The pedal box is very small in one of those, but they are quite good fun. They're kind of sort of like a sort of two fingers up almost to people who introduce these ultra low emission zones, because by that stage they were compliant and you can take it in and it's no problem. So that's one massive advantage. And they're absolutely tiny. Parking it was really easy. Simone from Hooked on Classics says, I was tempted to buy a Rover 100 Kensington in 2010, but it never happened. There are still quite a few of those around actually, if they're not totally rusty and the hydrogas hasn't collapsed and things. I have seen quite a few of them. They are, yeah, they ones I'd like to try. I'd like to try a Rover Metro and a Rover 100. Really, I'd like to have a go on one of those. Just depends if I'm actually offered one. Richard Howlett says, good evening all. Good evening to you, sir. Chambers 101 says, good evening, sir. I'm a little bit late to frying steak. I do like the sound of a nice steak, sir. That does sound very appealing. I'm afraid we are not having steak tonight. We are at the hotel trying to economise by buying sandwiches from Asda, which is, just the way that it goes when I'm on the road. Try not to spend too much money if I can avoid it. Paulie Galtieri says, very quick hello. I'm sort of to the bar. I didn't think you were coming, sir. I thought you were having supper with your lady wife. Hopefully she is allowing you to join the live stream very quickly. DBT says, do we have to join the Premier Inn? Yes, indeed, sir. A Premier Inn at a secret location. Simone Classic says, I like steak. We do like steak. It's very nice. Maybe I can have a steak at some point during the next 7 days. I'll suggest to my lady wife, perhaps we'll go and buy some steak on Monday. There we go. Right, so the best cars of British Leyland, if that's not an oxymoron. Does anyone else have any other ideas? I mean, we can discuss the Land Crab if you want, the Land Crab that you would have seen on the community page. I have driven quite a few other cars of the era today as well. That was just for one that I've actually put up there. There's others I drove from the BL era as well today, but that was that was one. DBT says, how can I tell it's a Premier Inn? It's because of this purple lighting, actually. That's a unique thing. The Premier Inn stuff, I just turned all the lights on because I need as much light as possible to do a live stream in here because it's so dark outside. Yes, there we go. Psycho63, this is a very good point, actually. How do you get information on all the classic meats? Is there one website that lists them all? Not as far as I know. I just hear about stuff, I go to them and just people tell me about them, and I just kind of know about them. BL Autumn Rally, I just happen to know. I've been before. Pride of Longbridge, I just happen to know. The NEC shows, I just happen to know when they are because I go to them. Little local shows, that one that I attended on Sunday at Bracefield near Romsey, I just got told about that by the local car club. It was a very good show. That was surprisingly good. It's just a little local show, and it was packed. I mean, some of you would have seen the videos of that. It was a really, really decent one for such a little place. They couldn't fit all the cars in. It was crazy. There just isn't one website. Just hear about stuff. So sometimes there are ones that clash, and sometimes I'm doing other things, so I don't go to everything. But I just happen to sort of hear and just weigh up whether or not I should go. I probably won't be going to so many next year because my lady wife could have got a bit annoyed of how many that I actually attended this year. She doesn't really like coming with me. She gets really, really bored. So I don't tend to take her with me because she just gets utterly, utterly bored. So we probably won't do so many next year, but we did a lot this year. Simone from Classic asked a good question here. What is your preferred food when away from home at a show? It depends if I can get hot food or not, and often I don't have that opportunity, so I just go to the supermarket and buy myself a little meal deal for a lot of the time, which just sort of works for me. If you do something like the NEC, that's 3 whole days, and you have to just be mindful of the cost. If you're constantly going to all the concessionary stands at the NEC for the whole 3 days, that's going to get very, very expensive. So I tend to sort of concentrate on the supermarket sort of little meal deals that I have, which just saves money. It's very boring, but of course I'm just on my own most of the time, so that's just a sort of cheap way of doing it, really. Chambers 101 says the 3-door classic Range Rover was British owned for a while. It certainly was. Yes, it absolutely was. Russell Hunter says, late, sorry, don't worry. So we've still got quite a while of live stream time left, so don't worry. DBT says, the Talk Volvo meet is at RAF Cosford tomorrow. Just a bit disappointed they can't make it. Yeah, they are still doing shows. I mean, there's a show actually that happens in the local area where I am. If you've seen a fuel power meet video on, I don't know, my channel, Ian Seabrook's channel, Driven 24/7 Fuel Power itself, that particular place, which is called the Army Flying Museum at Middle Wallop near Stockbridge, that actually has a meeting just after Christmas in the open air, which I attended last year. It was actually a very successful video. I was really surprised about how successful the video was. And that's might be my last show of the year. There's also another show that happens at Brooklands during on New Year's Day, but I probably won't be going to that. What I'll probably do is attend the New Year's Day run for the Test Valley Motor Enthusiasts with the club that I belong to. And they're very useful finding out about that, like a show at Bracefield. They're just generally a good club. I'm hoping to actually get some of their cars on the channel at some point. I just happen to, just waiting for people to offer me their cars, which they don't seem to do a lot because they're not really sort of au fait with a lot of YouTube stuff. And members seem to be sort of the older scale, which is normal for a club like that, really. Let's just see here. Mr. Waters from Scottish Car Enthusiast Race TV says a couple of people are going down to RAF Cosford from Scotland tomorrow. Yes, indeed. Lewis Snell says, sensible second-hand classics, which car is next? I don't actually know. As I've mentioned before, I filmed 9 cars in 2 days. I filmed 5 yesterday and 4 today. And let's just see how many qualify as sensible second-hand classics. 6 of them. So I've got quite a lot of choice. Yeah. I've got a lot of choice as which ones are coming up. You would have seen the 1800 on the community post on Facebook and Instagram today. Sorry, on YouTube today. The community post on YouTube and Instagram today. That'll be coming up at some point. But I've got tons of them now. I'm actually filming 2 more episodes of that next week as well. I get stuff all the time. I've got another car to film for that at some point. I was going to film that car on the same day as the Fiesta and the Bluebird, but the car in question, I'm not going to tell you what it is, you don't need to know really, that it wasn't running right, and having driven that Dolomite in September when it just wasn't really running right, I don't really want to do that again. It's just not great when you're driving along and there's just no power. So yeah, there we go, never mind. So yeah, take your pick, there's tons of them. I might actually do a poll for some of them and just ask like which ones you want to see first. I've got so many now, but it's not a bad thing though. Simone from Hits on Classic says, will there be any more shows before the end of the year? Well, there might be. I mean, there are sort of monthly meets and things that I can go to. Because the Rover lives outside and gets used virtually all the time, I don't really mind taking that to shows in the winter or anything. It's still being used and it goes up and down the motorway all the time. It's all been rust-proofed and everything now, so it's not a problem. So I don't mind, attending shows or taking it to a show. I don't really mind. A lot of people, obviously, understandably want to preserve their cars, put them in the garage, things like that. Over the winter, don't want to insure or tax them and things. But because I'm using the Rover all the time anyway, it doesn't really matter to me too much. So DBT says, I don't have a car to get me to the Volvo show anyway. I'm sorry to hear that, sir. That's it's a bit of a shame. I do sympathise with you there. Mr. Waters from Scottish Car Enthusiast and Trains TV says, I can't do the NEC show next month, but I'm hoping to get the Restoration show in March for my 40th. That's very good, sir. Yes, that would be a nice celebration for you. Russ London says, the best BL car, does the Jaguar XJC count? Well, it does, because that was made, I think, from 1975 to 1978. They were going to make that from 73, but they had, I think, some problems with the windows sealing or something like that, so it didn't go into production until 1975. And there was one of those, actually, in the New Avengers, as most of you know. It was a broad-speed modified one that recently sold at auction for a lot of money. It's called the Big Cat. It's NWK 60P. That is a good car. I don't know about the broad-speed modifications. I'm not so sure that that was the best decision, actually, to use a broad-speed modified XJC anyway. They should just give him a normal XJC, but you know, that's just my opinion, really. Simone's talking about the restoration show next March. She's hoping to come with a Cortina. That sounds very good, my friend. Paul Jens says R2 jacket reviews thing in the past. They're not actually. We just don't. We don't tend to make them a lot because they cost an awful lot of money to make. A huge amount of money, like way more money than I make in a month on YouTube. I think it's like, yeah, it's about 3 times what I make a month on YouTube is to film like 3 episodes of True Jacket reviews. If you want to do them properly, as we do, and you know, if I'm only going to get the same amount of views on that as an episode of No Budget Reviews, which sometimes happens, or even less, I've got to be thinking quite carefully about how many of those I make if they're going to be so expensive. As I've said before, No Budget Reviews started because we didn't have any money to film Tweed Jacket reviews. That's literally how it started, and I had to teach myself how to make them, literally from scratch, and you know, with very little guidance. I was very blessed to be given some editing software by Mr. Quirt from Planet Auto in 2019, so I could actually have a go at experimenting with them. But it just sort of came together. Sensible Secondhand Reviews or Classics, they're a little bit better made, but they don't cost as much at all. That's why I'm very keen to film as much of those as possible, because they don't cost like loads of money. I have to get someone in to do True Jacket because to do the quality that I want, and it sort of annoys me an awful lot that people say I can't tell the difference between No Budget Reviews and True Jacket reviews. If you can't tell the difference between them, then I've failed in my job, very much so, because they are far better made. The presentation's not necessarily stronger. That's my fault, really. But the cinematography and editing's done by somebody else, so they should be better. You should see the difference. If you can't, then it saddens me. But that's why we don't make them, because the demand isn't sort of there for making tons of them. It just isn't. It's not really there a lot of the time. However, if there are some really brand new cars that I do know should do quite well on the channel, and I happen to know which ones we have got coming up, we've actually arranged already with a place to do 3 of them in one block, and possibly another one for Christmas as well. So they are going to happen. I'm just waiting for a time to go and film these 3 new cars in one go. I'm just waiting for that time, because I don't know when that's going to be. But yeah, we haven't abandoned them. It's just I have to be mindful of how much money that we're spending on the channel if we don't cover our costs, which we really don't. Like, you know, some of you would understand how little that you know, YouTube actually makes you at the level that I am, which is fine. I don't like to talk about it very much, particularly because it's not relevant to most of you. But you have to think about these things, and you know, I've got my lady wife to think about. You know, I'm not the only person in the household, and you know, we have to think about what we're spending our money on. And if I constantly spend it on like filming like 50 episodes of True Jacket reviews, then we wouldn't have any money left, and I think it would make her a bit sad. So I've got to be careful about that sort of thing. So Sean Cook says, like Chambers 101, the absolute best was the Range Rover. All the cars were equally well designed, equal to competition. Sadly, finance assembly caused regrettable problems. It's a very difficult question, sort of thing to answer, really, because some of the cars were not designed well in some regards. Some of them were just badly assembled. Some of them were both. It's a very difficult question to answer that. Bad Book says, good evening, sir. Good evening to you, sir. Matt W says, the best British alien cars are Princess 2 HLS. Interesting, sir. You might find something to your advantage coming on my channel soon. DBT says, well, if things go well, I might be able to get a driving test booked before the end of the year. There's a huge backlist at the moment. Yeah, I've heard about that. It's just sad. Sean Cook says, for commercial vehicles, we're all world class and in demand on every continent on Earth. Yeah, the Leyland trucks were very profitable, and they did kind of help the company get through some quite lean years. Um, yeah. Uh, Russell just says, Matt W, we have a fondness for the princess. Yeah, I don't think you're the only ones, actually. Quite a few people quite like those now. I remember the days in the late 90s when those were like £200 cars. They're really not now anymore. Um, DB2 is my favourite BL car. Has to be an SD1. I love the design of them. Um, yeah, I'd really like to get hold of one of those. I've been trying to get hold of one of those for absolutely ages, and I haven't quite managed that. It's really kind of um, sort of iconic in so many ways, that car. Um, but it just so happens that what I get offered, like literally 90% of what you see on the channel is just literally people who sent me an email and offered me their car for review. It's as simple as that. The cars that I have filmed in the last couple of days, though, I just happened to meet the people who owned them, and I just said, "Okay, can I do some filming?" And we've arranged it. So that is what I do. But most of the time, and the Bluebird and the Fiesta were like this. Someone just sent me an email and said, "I've got these cars. Do you want to film them?" And the answer is normally yes. It's just the way that it works. It's nothing more complicated than that. Um, Simone from Hooked on Classics says, if a Cortina was to appear the channel, which category would it be in? It's simple enough. I think you can buy a Mark III Cortina for under £5,000. I'm pretty sure you can. Sensible second-hand classics, absolutely. Mr. Harwood says, this is absolutely true, which is kind of annoying. And sometimes the more basic film reviews do better, which is strange if you think about it. Yes, I've had one of my most successful videos ever is the Honda Jazz that was filmed in half an hour in 2020. And that has had some stupid amount of views, like 35,000 views. I still to this day do not know why. I have no idea why. I filmed another car that day as well that I thought would do a lot better, and it hasn't. But yeah, the Jazz, for some reason, people just keep watching it. I don't really understand. Jonathan Porter Sausage says, I think people buy the person style of a video more than technical quality. No budget reviews are fine and informative. Well, as I said, they really just existed because we didn't have any money to do True Jacket reviews. And I love True Jacket reviews. Mr. Franks, who was a co-founder of the channel, really, he really likes making them. It's just a shame we can't do more. It's just literally a prohibitive cost, and you know, the fact that he lives in Scotland, that's another thing. I do get Mr. Richardson and Mr. Bell to also make them for me from time to time. In fact, the last one you would have seen was done by Mr. Bill, but it's actually about HSR. But again, like, that's not had that many views considering how wonderful that car is. Sometimes True Jacket reviews are not brand new cars. They're like, they can be very old cars. That was an 81. So I don't know. It's just really strange. I don't understand it. I don't think anybody does really. Paul JN says, "What the channel sponsor? I've got a channel sponsor actually. I've got DMGRS who help me out with the cost of servicing the Rover. So they do help me out a bit with that. But you don't tend to just approach people and ask them for sponsorship. It doesn't really work like that. You tend to get approached by people, and you know, a lot of I get approached by people, but it's stuff that I don't really think is actually relevant, and I wouldn't use myself. And I think the only sponsorship I would take was if it was relevant, if I would use it. The mount that I have in the car that I use for virtually every single video is really good, by a company called Desert West, and I'm very happy to say that that's brilliant. You know, it is. I got it for free, but it's a really good product. That's an example of something I would use. Russell just says, I always forgot the British Airways made commercial vehicles. Wasn't the Leyland National widely exported and the basis for the Pacer train? Yes, both of those things are true. Leyland National was widely exported, and it was the basis for the bodywork of the Pacers, which I think have been taken off the railways now. Chambers, when I wanted to scam all the super trucks of the truck world, Scammell are crazy. Like the ones that they make, sometimes you see them at shows, and they are they are kind of just astonishing, awesome things. Psycho63 says a colleague is buying a Kia Stinger. He said it was a V6, so I looked at some reviews. Amazingly fast and powerful, slightly shambolic SMMT reviews. We actually filmed that September last year. It's on the channel. There's not had many views for that, unfortunately, but that was an amazing car. Fantastic cars. I very much like the Kia Stinger. Simone, Twitch on Classic, says, I love the Princess, I always have. Well, as I said, you might find something on the channel quite soon to your advantage. I don't know what this is. Someone's sent through something I don't really understand. So I'll go on to the next. Sean Cook is replying to Matt W about the Maxi 2. Both the Maxi and the Maxi 2 had a hatchback. I think what you're talking about is the Princess and the Ambassador. The Ambassador had the hatchback, not Maxi had it all the way from the beginning. Matt's talking about an orange Kia Stinger. I've not seen a Stinger in orange. Yeah, we do like those. Sean Cook says Leyland buses rule the world with the exception of the USA. I don't know anything about buses to be able to say, but quite possibly. Mr. Watson's College Car Enthusiast and Trains TV says most popular video for me is somebody changing the fuse in an R56 Mini. Yeah, it's very strange what gets views, isn't it? Yeah, ST. That's no good. We'll have to not mention people making anagrams. I don't actually find that thing funny anyway, really. So Mr. Washington's Scottish Car Enthusiast and Trains TV says, I know Modern Heroes got approached by a bridal company looking for sponsorship. I'm afraid bridal companies are not getting any sponsorship accepted by me. We're not really the right channel for that kind of thing. Simone says, I've had a few emails regarding promotion, but for random unrelated things. Not sure how to respond to them. I tend to use the delete key. That tends to work quite well. Mr. Planet Man says, greetings from an expat in Ontario. Missed for cars, drove in the 80s and early 90s. Well, we've got plenty of cars from the 80s and early 90s on the channel. We've got tons and tons of them now. Chambers 101 says the passing of Robbie Coltrane was sad. I remember the Planes, Trains and Automobiles show. Yes, my lady wife was talking about him actually earlier on today. She used to watch Cracker back in the day, and yeah, she actually really liked it. I think she's watched it in period, so she would have been a teenager when she watched that, and she seemed to quite like that. So there we go. Right, I think we are quite well through these questions here. Does anybody else have anything else they would like to ask, or any comments they would like to make? Please put them in the chat box. Simone from Classic says, Cracker was a great show. I have never actually watched it. One of my viewers in New Zealand has kept telling me like how great it is, but the thing is, I don't often actually get to watch stuff like that. I've very little kind of time to sort of invest in like watching, you know, lots of new shows like that I haven't watched. So yeah, I just haven't sort of got round to it, unfortunately. I seem to be more busy than ever, and that's not necessarily to do with the channel, it's to do with other things as well. ST says, when are you coming to Northern Ireland? I don't really know. I've been offered a car in Northern Ireland, actually, a couple of cars over there. It's not kind of off the cards, really. It's just I have to sort of look at this sort of finances and see, you know, if we can afford to go over there, because the flights are far more expensive than they used to be. There is one from Southampton Airport, which is not very far from us, to Belfast. So yeah, you know, I'd like to do it at some point. It's just you know, looking at seeing if it's actually going to work out financially do it, because I have been offered a really interesting car to film in Northern Ireland, actually. Oh, Mr. Harwood says, my 25 has been having a few issues recently. It seems to be overheating on idle in traffic. That's not the problem Mr. Richardson had with 200 VI, is it, sir? I hope not. Yes, ST points out that in Northern Ireland there's a fantastic motoring community and roads. The roads in Northern Ireland, I have seen some video of them, and they do look amazing. Um, Mr. Harwood says it might be a new thermostat and Saab valve. What is a Saab valve, sir? I'm not quite sure what you mean. Um, Russell Hunter says not related to British Leyland, but what's your opinion of the Chrysler Delta? You can see a Chrysler Delta on my channel. I actually did them on True Jacket Reviews in 2019. I actually knew someone who had one, and I asked her if I could film it. This is in the very early days of the channel when I might have had less than 200 subscribers, but it's on there. It's on my True Jacket Reviews playlist. You can have a look, sir. Simone asks, "Are you planning any other TV show car-related adventures? Do you mean just like episodes of cars on film and television, or do you mean ones which are specifically related to like a show? I don't quite know." Mr. Sean Cook says, "What's your opinion on the Marina Ital?" I really want to try one of those. I got offered an Ital Estate a while ago, but what happens is that somebody says on some comment or something, "I've got one of these, please come and drive it," or something. And I said, well, look, what you've got to do is like send me an email, because I can't get in touch with you. You can't, I don't think anymore, have any kind of way of sending a message to someone on YouTube with their username. You can't do that. In the earlier days of YouTube, you could. Yeah. So I couldn't follow it up. I had to wait for somebody to contact me. That's why my email address is in every single video that I make, pretty much, because otherwise people don't really understand and contact me. Now there are ways of doing that. You can follow me on Facebook. I've got a link to the Facebook page in the description of every video, I think. Not this one because it's one of the live streams, but every single other one I think I have. And I think I put my email in the contact page on the channel as well. That's also there. So that's how I get all these inappropriate sponsorship things. Mr. Harwood says the Saab valve is a valve that allows for coolant flow through the heater. Okay. That's interesting. Mr. Something Pants with two N's. I'm not allowed to say what the first part of that is. What's your opinion on running a vehicle on vegetable oil? I don't think that's the right channel, really, for discussing things like that, I'm afraid, sir, because there's a certain type of heavy oil that we don't discuss around here. And you'd have to have that type of vehicle to run a vegetable oil, so I'm afraid it's not probably the right channel to discuss that, I'm afraid. Simone from Hooked on Classics, like the film made about 150 Degree. Yes, there is a particular show that I've been begged to actually feature on the channel. The reason I've not done it is because I need to go to the places where it was filmed and do a proper job of it, and I haven't really kind of managed to do that sort of yet. There's just loads of other things that I'm doing, and I do have another job entirely outside of cars, not just sorting cars with people or YouTube or anything, and that actually does occupy quite a lot of my time as well. So it's just a question of actually fitting everything in. So I just don't get around to everything. I don't tend to forget things. If people offer me cars, I tend to remember, even if I can't get there and do them necessarily, but I tend to remember that they've offered them. Yeah. Sean Cook says, do you agree that George Cowley searched his early Princess 2000 quite well? There were two princesses used in some episodes of Professionals in the first series because they were kind of between cars, switching from the British Leyland press cars to the Ford press cars. And just for some parts of episodes like Heroes and Private Matters Public Danger, they hired a couple of princesses, a green one and a red one, just to fill in some shots. The more basic red princess, that's not so good. The green one was better, but I don't know. I might be talking about one of those quite soon on the channel, so you'll have to see. James 101 says, if you keep appearances, yes it is, sir. Mr. Sense of word, pants of two ends, says, is kerosene the forbidden fuel? What type of kerosene are you talking about, sir? Because there's American kerosene and British kerosene. Jonathan Port Sausage says, what's your job? I don't really tend to talk about it, to be honest. It's not really relevant to most stuff on my channel, so I don't really tend to talk about it, if that's okay. Simone Printon Classic says, what is your favourite car driven by Emma Peel, Dinah Rigg in the Avengers? She only ever drove 2 cars, really. There were 2 Lotus Elans, if I remember correctly, HNK 999C and SJH499D, both supplied by Lotus. Yeah, those are the only 2. I'd love to try an Elan if I can actually get into it. I mean, Patrick McNee actually managed to get into one of those, so I could probably get in and have a go in an Elan. Yeah, I don't see why not. That could be fun. I can actually get hold of one. It's always the way. Let's see, Mr. Censored, pants of two ends. The kerosene, that's aircraft fuel, isn't it? The kerosene. I don't know, this isn't really an aircraft channel, is it? We don't discuss planes on here because I don't really know much about them. Russell Cooper says, why do you think the Austin Princess? It's not the Austin Princess, I'm afraid, so it's just the Princess. It's very specifically not the Austin Princess. And got so many bad reviews. I don't know. They're not the fastest cars around. The design, which probably to our eyes looks classic and of the period, probably wasn't the most sort of popular shape. Just British Rail in general just got mocked for poor quality, I think, back in the day. Maybe those are some of the reasons, I don't know. Well, yeah. Mr. Censored Pants with Two Ends says, the Bidley Mega Chippy. Yes, we know about the Bidley Mega Chippy. Mr. Coleman and I have had many discussions about the Bidley Mega Chippy. We might go there at some point, possibly. Chambers 101 says, my grandparents lived on the same road as Mrs. Bouquet, or Bucket, in Bidley Woods. Yeah, the road that they filmed on for your appearances where her house was in Bidley Woods, very near the Coventry Stadium. John Robbo says, which Capri do you prefer, the Minder or Professionals one? I don't prefer the Minder one, sir. I mean, like, it's got to be a V6 Capri, hasn't it, really? The Minder one's interesting for loads of reasons, and obviously it's had that restoration after that terrible fire, but yeah. Russell says, is the Elan the one that's a bit of foot off the ground? Yeah, the suspension in the Elan is not particularly low. Oh, sorry, you mean the actual car? Yeah, it's really low. It's like down here somewhere. Yeah, it's very low. Sean Cook says, frontline developments proved how timeless the MGB was and is. Yeah, a British Leyland car, a frontline development, so I think we're going to try to take that over. I think Tickford were trying as well at the end to keep building it, but that didn't come to anything, unfortunately, at the end, and it finished production after 18 years. I am hoping to get that one on the channel. There is one that actually I've been offered, and the filming of the car has been put back so many times. We will eventually get hold of that. I know exactly which one it is. You've probably seen it in quite a few videos actually. Eventually we will do it, but I just don't know when at the moment. DBT, so I live minutes away from Coventry. I've been past a Bidley Mega Chippy multiple times. Yes, indeed. It's not too far, kind of, from the centre of Coventry, actually. Isn't not too far out of the centre. Mr. Harwood says, good news. I managed to remove the very awkward rear suspension box on the Civic. The same ones that snap on the 45 and ZS. Yeah, apparently that is quite awkward. Simone from Put on Classics says, I'd like to drive an MGB. Yeah, I think they got a servo for the brakes and an all synchro gearbox, so that's a good start. Some of the stuff I drove today did not have synchro in all 4 gears and not have a brake servo, so that was interesting. Leroy the Wiz says a Piranha. Yes, for Capri Piranha, the V8. Crazy. Russell says, I do like the John Player Special Capri. Yes, those are very stylish, aren't they? The Mark II Capri JPS, it's called. Um, yeah, I think Sean Cook's still talking about the MGB. They are addictive. Yeah, yeah, possibly. Yeah, the midget I managed to get in. I don't know how I managed to get in, but somehow I did. That was that was not the easiest car I've ever driven in my life, I must say. Mr. Censored Pants with 2N says the bins outside Binley Mega Chippy are beautiful. Really, I don't think I've ever come across a bin described as beautiful before. So, ever the more reason to go and visit that whilst we go and talk about the cars used in keeping up appearances. Anyway, I think that's it. We've been on for 51 minutes. So thank you ever so much indeed once again for joining me for this slightly less than professional live stream number 29. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, leave a comment below, and we shall see you again soon for more, well, not particularly interesting live streams.